Hello everybody and welcome back to the United Stand. It is Friday morning, your weekend begins here. The derby weekend begins here. We are going to be talking about Zinedine Zidane rejecting Manchester United again. What is in that report? Can somebody reject you when you've not even approached them? I'm going to be talking all things about Zidane and the rumours that Sir Jim Ratcliffe, it's his dream to have Zidane as Manchester United manager. We'll get into that. Also some new stuff coming out around Mason Greenwood and his future at Manchester United. We thought that it'd be nailed on, he goes in the summer. The Sun are now reporting something differently and also previewing the derby weekend ahead. But welcome everybody to the show. Morning to you all. I'm not going to lie, getting straight into things. I mean, getting your comments. I'm really just... I feel completely fed up this morning. I can't lie to you. Like, the stuff that's going around on social media at the moment and the false narratives that are circling around social media is absolutely crazy. I'm not going to lie to you. But we have a show to do and there's some juicy stuff to get into and I'll get all your opinions in as per usual. But first up is Zinedine Zidane will reject the chance to manage Manchester United should he get offered the job. Is coming from RMC Sport. But then I actually dug a little bit further into this report and realistically, do you remember a couple of years ago when the report came out that, I can't remember, it was one of Zidane's teammates and they said that they spoke to Zidane in Madrid 2 years ago and he told me that there was only 3 roles he would like to accept and they are Marseille, Madrid and the French team. That is what this report is basically based off. So it's not anything really particularly current. The way that they've phrased it makes it seem like Zidane's rejected Sir Jim's call like a week ago, but realistically, it's just the same stance now as it was then. That he only wants to manage Marseille, the French team, and Real Madrid. And fair enough, like Man United aren't even trying to get Zidane yet. Maybe in the future, if anyone's seen that clip of Faz saying Zinedine Zidane, maybe in the future when, you know, if Ten Hag is still here, if Ten Hag ends up leaving the club, that's something to go for. But for now, we're not looking at any other managers. Fabrizio Romano has said that himself. Ken Peacock said Beth wants Anana as manager. I mean, I don't think that'd go down well, to be honest with you. Steve-O said Zidane news is no news. And a lot of people saying, OK, it's a fake story then. And it's not a fake story. It's not a fake story as such. It's just a story that's kind of been blown out of proportion, to be honest with you. Honestly, even... Say this story has come out, you know, Zidane will reject the chance to manage Manchester United should he get offered the job. Obviously, that's based off what he's been saying about them 3 clubs that he'd want to manage. But realistically, I do think if Sir Jim did, which isn't happening, by the way, but if Sir Jim rang up Zinedine Zidane in the summer and said, we've got a job for you at Manchester United, do you want to join? I think he'd still say no. I genuinely think he would still say no. And a lot of people have different views on Zinedine Zidane. Some people said, you know, he wants it already built for him. Real Madrid, you know, the unlimited money, the stature, he's ready to go. And people saying, you know, he needs a team of Galacticos. And let's just put it plain and simply. You can have the best players. You can have the best players in the world. You have to be a good manager to win the Champions League back-to-back 3 times. Like, you have to be a good manager to do that. You have to have tactics. You have to be a good tactician. I think Zinedine Zidane is a brilliant manager, to be honest. I think he's got the stature. Apparently, his man management is really, really good. I think just the trophies he's won in his time in management is insane as a player. He already gets respect off players in the dressing room from what he did as a player. Zinedine Zidane is a very good manager, and in the future, if Ten Hag did ever leave, I don't want him to, but if Ten Hag did leave, Zinedine Zidane would be a manager that I'd want to get in, but I don't think he wants to come to English. He doesn't come to English. He doesn't want to come to England. He doesn't even know how to speak English, I'm pretty sure. He'd have to learn how to do that to manage at Manchester United. I think there's a lot of stumbling blocks you'd have to get over with Zinedine Zidane, and I just don't think it's something that would end up happening. JPJ said he is a B-Tech deserve it. A B-Tech deserve it is absolutely wild for someone that's won the Champions League 3 times, like back-to-back. Like, come on now. Like, that is absolutely crazy. So, I mean, Zinedine Zidane deserves respect as a manager, but he's not a manager that I think would be coming to Manchester United. Next up on the agenda, get your comments in about Zinedine Zidane, by the way. There's still this talk about, you know, a new manager coming to Manchester United, whether Sir Jim's going to go for a new manager. Categorically, as of now, from what we know from Fabrizio Romano, who for me, is a top-tier journalist, is Sir Jim and Sir Dave Brailsford are not looking to replace Erik ten Hag. That is why Erik ten Hag is coming across quite comfortable in his press conferences. He knows that there's a project there with Manchester United, and I think they are giving him the benefit of the doubt for now. That doesn't mean they won't make a change in the summer. That doesn't mean they won't do that. But for now, Erik ten Hag is the guy that they are backing, and they are not contacting any other managers. And if they were really open to getting a new manager in the summer, they would be contacting new managers now, because Liverpool needs a new manager, Barcelona need a new manager. There's things that are, the doors that are going to be opening and closing in the summer for new managers. And if Man United were going to replace Ten Hag, if they were going to replace Ten Hag, they should be looking at new managers now. I'd even say that. But I don't think the plan is to do that as of now, and a lot of people will be frustrated with that. But Ten Hag deserves the time with that board, in my opinion. And if we were going to replace Ten Hag, the only two options I'd really be able to get excited about would be Nagelsmann or De Zerbi, to be honest with you. And both of them are huge risks that could easily go backwards. Ricky Marino says, we all know Rooney wants the job. God, could you imagine if Wayne Rooney got the Man United job? Wayne Rooney, by the way, for me, he's my favourite ever Man United player. But I would not want him anywhere near the club as a manager right this second. I mean, right this second, it would be an absolute no-go. But let's move on to a little bit on Mason Greenwood. So, this is all coming from The Sun. We know The Sun has kind of been a mouthpiece for Mason Greenwood throughout this whole saga. The Sun always does report positive Mason Greenwood stuff. Like, that has just been the case. Sometimes it feels like Mason Greenwood's camp is writing it themselves, to be honest with you. That's just the way it comes across. But The Sun is put out that right now there is a view that there is a 50-50 chance that Mason Greenwood could return to Manchester United. It goes on to say, Sir Jim Ratcliffe wants Mason Greenwood's future to be resolved by the end of May. Ratcliffe is open to bringing Mason Greenwood back, but wants to speak to the fans group and other senior officials about him before making a final decision. When I tell you I am sick and tired of talking about Mason Greenwood, honestly, this whole saga has been going on for so long now. And I'm going to be honest, The Sun always reports in favour of Mason Greenwood. That's always happens, and I don't really trust The Sun as an outlet. They've got so many things wrong. But also, on this, it's when people got excited when Sir Jim Ratcliffe said, on Mason Greenwood, that there's no decision been made yet, and people were reading in between the lines thinking, oh, is Mason Greenwood going to come back in the summer? Is Mason Greenwood going to come back in the summer? I may be proven wrong, but in my personal opinion, Mason Greenwood will not walk back into Manchester United. It just won't happen. This is being put out there because Mason Greenwood, I think Man United are going to sell him in the summer. And I think that's the only option. If you are selling a player, do you want every other club to know that's kind of in the market for him and is going to want to buy him, that you're desperate to sell a player? Absolutely not, because then the price just comes down. If everybody knows that we have to sell Greenwood and we need to sell Greenwood, do you think we're going to get the price that is right for him? No, people are going to know that they can lowball these offers because we're desperate to get rid of him. And like I've said on previous shows, people won't want to hear it, but the best thing for him and his career would be to stay away from Man United. The amount of abuse that he would receive if he came back to the club would be insane. He's making a life for himself out in Spain. The Spanish club's interested in him. I mean, there's talks of Barcelona, Atletico Madrid being interested in him. They're not bad clubs to go to. Let's be honest. They've got good stature in Europe. You're playing at a high level. I think the best thing for Mason Greenwood would be to start a clean slate, and it's the best thing for Manchester United as well. There'd just be complete uproar, not to mention the financial fair play aspect of things. You sell Greenwood, it is pure profit going into your summer transfer budget. We've not had Greenwood for nearly 2 years now, despite what's happened off the pitch. We've moved on as a club without him, and I think bringing him back would just open a complete can of worms that Manchester United just do not need to open at this moment in time. We need to focus on the current team that we have, investing in future profiles that are not going to cause any disruption to the team. We need to be looking at players' backgrounds, looking at their attitude, looking at their personality, and thinking, is this the right fit for Manchester United? And there was talk a while ago that Erik ten Hag thought he was going to come back in the summer. There was talk a while ago that, Greenwood was going to come back to Manchester United with the whole Richard Arnold thing, and then it was a last-minute U-turn decision. At the end of the day, I don't think Manchester United can go back on this decision now. I think there'd just be complete uproar from a lot of areas. I mean, think about sponsors that are investing their money into the club. Like these are things people don't think about. Sponsors that are investing millions upon millions into Manchester United year after year, they're going to have something to say on whether they want their brand attached to Mason Greenwood coming back. That's just the way it is. I just think it's way too much trouble for Greenwood to come back into the team. And people will say he's not guilty, which he's not even, he didn't even end up going to court. So he is like that whole situation, he is completely innocent and free to do whatever he wants. Of course he is. But in the court of public opinion, it's just, you're not going to be able to change people's minds on this. I don't think. I think too much is out there for that to happen. So I don't think Greenwood will come back. Was he a generational talent? Absolutely. Is he still a very good player? I mean, I've not really seen much of him this season, but absolutely, apparently he's doing very well. Make a life for yourself in Spain. Make a new life. For him, it wouldn't be worth it to come back to Manchester United, to be honest with you. What does the player even want to come back to Manchester United? There was reports coming out last week that he feels like Man United didn't support him as much as they could have done, and he didn't even want to come back. So people saying bring Mason Greenwood back, what if the player himself doesn't even want to? So for me, that door is closed. That report for me is simply just, we are being clever here. We cannot afford to say in the summer, we're desperate to sell Greenwood. Offers, please. Like, there's not going to be that many clubs lining up to buy him anyway, to be honest with you, because of the whole kind of baggage that comes with it. So we need to get as much money as possible. People that are negotiating, they can't go into the negotiation thinking, Man United are desperate here, let's just offer what we can and they'll take it. We need to be able to get as much money as we possibly can. So, Andreas Wood says, scream loud enough and long enough and eventually everyone will start to believe you. Rashford is trying to get everyone's attention and sympathy. On the Rashford thing, I mean, the United stand is being absolutely dragged through the mud on Twitter for the Rashford thing, and it's like, at the end of the day, people have different opinions. The United stand is a platform that gives a platform to different people with different opinions. I personally read that piece yesterday and I thought that is somebody speaking up and trying to kind of communicate with the fan base. And I still have my opinions on what's been going on the pitch. Like, realistically, I mean, I spoke about that yesterday. Other people have different opinions on it. Some people have said they think it's PR. Some people have said they think it's genuine. People are going to have opinions. And it's wild to me that people think that everybody on the United stand shares the same opinion. Like, do you ever come across people in life that everyone shares the exact same opinion? It never happens. So the Rashford thing, some of you guys in the chat are going to think differently about it. I'll probably think about it differently to a lot of you people. Like, that's just the way the world works. It's mad that people can't comprehend that people have different opinions on things. Dan Watson says, I don't think anyone knows what they're doing with Erik ten Hag except Ineos with Barada. No one knew. New regimes choose new manager 90% of the time. Patrick Lynch says, my reason for being Erik ten Hag in is if we had any other manager right now and we were looking at replacements, Erik ten Hag would be top of that list. He needs time. Well, that's one thing I do want to talk about is with Erik ten Hag, right? People say to me all the time, bring in De Zerbi, bring in Nagelsmann, bring in Zidane, and people, their reasoning for this is we need to bring in a manager that has a proper style of play. We need to bring in a manager that has a style of play that's going to implement their style of play at Manchester United. And let me just rewind in time. I'm taking you back. What year was it that Erik ten Hag came into Manchester United? Was it the summer of 2022? The summer of 2022, I think it was, that Erik ten Hag came into United, or early in 2022. And there's stories coming about Erik ten Hag is a candidate to come into Manchester United as their new manager. Maurizio Pochettino is a candidate to come into Manchester United as their new manager. Let's be honest, it was a race between Maurizio Pochettino and Erik ten Hag. Here on the United stand, I'm going to be honest, I was the first person, I know I was, I'm going to back myself. I was the first person on the United stand to say that I wanted Erik ten Hag as our next manager. people might think, wow, I mean, that worked out well, didn't it, Beth? But I was one of the first people to say I wanted Erik ten Hag. And then the more it kind of came into discussion, there was a discussion between Poch or Erik ten Hag. Most of the people in the United stand, if I remember correctly, were in favour of Erik ten Hag. Most of the people in the mainstream media were in favour of Mauricio Pochettino. And the reason that a lot of you guys, most people in the United stand, me myself, I can only speak to myself. The reason we wanted Erik ten Hag is because of the style of play he had implemented at Ajax that was working against the top teams in Europe. If anybody remembers when Ajax played Real Madrid in the Champions League, Ajax played them off the park. They were absolutely unbelievable. Like, that Ajax team that Erik ten Hag built, by the way. Of course, he had, sporting director ahead of him, and they had a proper team, they had a proper unit. But that team that he built got picked apart twice across Europe, with different teams taking their best players. And people will say, well, it's the system they have at Ajax. When Erik ten Hag left Ajax, they fell off a cliff. They couldn't buy a win at the start of this season. I know they've turned it around now, but they massively dropped off. Erik ten Hag did absolute wonders at the Ajax team. And he built a team that were playing unbelievably lovely football to watch. And they took teams apart across Europe. Like, they were brilliant. And considering the budget that he had, considering, the calibre of players that they have access to at Ajax, he built a team that played free-flowing, attacking football, that was a clear system, that was visually amazing to watch. So you look at that and you think, he's coming to Manchester United, whether it's pressure of the job, whether it's not having a proper structure above him, whether it's, the players he has to kind of manage here at Manchester United, the egos are obviously bigger, it's harder to kind of manoeuvre players at Manchester United. Whatever it is, Ten Hag has not been able to implement the style of play, the reason that we all wanted him in. And I'm Erik ten Hag in and I want him to be given a chance, but even I can sit here and say the football has been diabolical. Like, let's be honest. And we've not seen anything from what we've seen of why we brought Ten Hag in. What makes you think that we go and get a Nagelsmann, a De Zerbi, anyone like that? What makes you think that they're going to be able to implement their style of football, which is why you want them now? Because Erik ten Hag was one of the best up-and-coming managers around when we brought him into Manchester United. Like, there was talks of him getting the City job when Pep left. Like, he was regarded so highly across Europe. And he came into Manchester United. We had a good first season, let's be honest. We overachieved. We won a cup. This season, the football's been terrible, and everyone's saying he has no style of play. He's this, he's that. Horrible tactics. And it's like, well, before he came into Manchester United, everyone was saying how amazing his football was, what a great tactician he was. These things can't just change overnight. So you bring in a De Zerbi, you bring in a Nagelsmann. What makes you think they're going to be able to implement their football straight away into Manchester United? Please, if you're Erik ten Hag out and you want one of the managers, tell me. Because I think De Zerbi, by the way, I think he's going to be an unbelievable manager. I think the signs there early doors. But there also is red flags. Like, Brighton take a battering every now and again. They will lose a couple of games in a row and people won't talk about it because it's not Man United, it's Brighton. But they can also play amazing football and they can play teams off the park. I think personally for me, De Zerbi, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There's clear green flags, there's also clear red flags as well. Nagelsmann has a good style of football, he's young, up and coming, I really like him. But there's also risks to that as well. So you think about it, people just want the next best thing all the time. If Erik ten Hag was, at Ajax now, continuing to do the same thing that he did, and we'd gone for Pochettino, and it weren't working out with Pochettino, people would be saying, bring Ten Hag in, he's amazing at Ajax, look at the style of play he's got. It's so different when you walk into Manchester United. Manchester United is one of the biggest clubs in the world. A lot of people can't hack it. I mean, we've gone through so many managers. To be fair, I don't think Moyes was ever cut out for the job. Louis van Gaal, I feel like we got him too late. Mourinho, another one that I feel like we got too late. But these are all, I'd probably say Van Gaal and Mourinho were highly esteemed managers when they came into Manchester United and they couldn't make it work. We've gone through manager after manager after manager. What honestly makes people think that sacking Ten Hag and bringing someone new in, everything's immediately going to change overnight. It's just not going to. Like, the past has taught you that in Manchester United. So that's why I'm in the mindset where I at least want to give Erik ten Hag a fair crack of the whip. I at least want to give him time under a sporting director, a proper CEO, and see what he can do. And people will say, I always bring up, look at Arteta at Arsenal. If they would have sacked him when the pressure was on, I mean, Arteta out t-shirts, it was circling in the media. I remember Arteta doing a post-match interview. He could barely speak. He was under that much pressure. And everyone thought he was going to be sacked. Everyone thought it. And they stuck by him, and look where they are now. And people always come back to me and say, well, Arteta didn't get third and then go backwards. He got 8th, 5th, and then started competing for the title. He never went backwards. And I think, okay, fair enough. And people say, well, look at the money that Ten Hag spent and the signings have not paid off. And I think, okay, fair enough. But what Arsenal did is they got Edu in, who's been a revelation at Arsenal and has worked with Arteta, and they've built a great team. In Arteta's current Arsenal team, there's one player that was there from when Arteta came in. And do you know who that is? I'm pretty sure it's Saka. One player. I know there's definitely one player that was there from when Arteta walked in the door. Erik ten Hag, imagine if there was only one player there from when Erik ten Hag walked in. Like, he's got loads of managers, different players. He's got some of Mourinho's signings, he's still got some of Van Gaal's signings, he's got Solskjaer signings. Yeah, he's got some of his own, and let's be honest, evaluating Erik ten Hag's signings, they've not been great. There's some that have been excellent, Højlund and Martinez. There's some that haven't been excellent. I mean, Anthony proper gives him a bad rep in terms of his signings. But look at what... Oh, it was El Neni. Did Saka come through afterwards? I think it was El Neni. But look, these are things about giving managers time. This is what I mean about giving a manager some time. And the people were saying so much about Arteta. People say now, well, at least Arteta had a style of play. And I think people don't remember what was going on. Arteta won the FA Cup with Arsenal, the season that they came 8th, through playing park the bus, counter-attack football. He didn't play the football that he's playing now when he first came into Arsenal. It didn't happen. So people who say that, it's not true. It really isn't true. He waited, he got the players in that he wanted to build, and eventually his style of play started to evolve. And I'm going to be honest, Arsenal are brilliant to watch. It's horrible to say, but it's true. But people will say, well, stop using the Arteta excuse, stop comparing to Arsenal. But that is a prime example of how sticking with a manager and getting a proper kind of structure above helps a manager. I mean, Kroenke was under, like, the fans were so against them at Arsenal. They brought in Edu, who's massively helped things out, and they've got the recruitment sorted, and Arteta is doing a great job now. Sometimes, you know, the last thing you'd want, in my opinion, is you get to the point where, say if we sack Ten Hag now, and then a few years down the line you're thinking, that was a massive mistake. We never should have done that. We should have given him time. What I want to happen is we look back in 3 years' time, 5 years' time and say, do you remember that time when Sir Jim had just come in and we were having a horrible season and Ten Hag was, God, he was so close to getting sacked. Thank God we didn't do that. That's what I want to be happening. And I think there's a real chance that happens because a manager doesn't go from taking Real Madrid, well, not taking them apart, but basically playing Real Madrid off the park in the Champions League with Ajax and the budget that Ajax have, to being a clueless manager that has no idea. It just doesn't happen. Like, it doesn't happen. Ten Hag gives me, there's massive question marks I have over him. But he doesn't just become a bad manager overnight. I think he deserves the time. And that's, I can understand people that don't want him, but for me, but for people that don't want him, please, because there's so many people in the chat saying Ten Hag out and, you know, saying that they don't want Ten Hag in place. Please tell me what you think changes if we get another manager. I'd love to know. Please send your super chats in and let me know. Keel Robinson says, second year he had to wait for the sale of the club. Exactly, and all the stuff coming out from the club as well, and all the stuff Ten Hag's had to deal with. There's been so many. The injury list has been astronomical. I still don't think you can use injuries as an excuse, but it's something you have to encounter. The actual sale of the club happening above him, that can't be good. The job security of everyone in and around you, not knowing if you're coming or going, not knowing what the plans are for the future. I mean, having John Murtough as your sporting director is always going to be something holding you back, isn't it? Like, there's so many things that's happened. The Mason Greenwood situation was absolutely huge. The Sancho situation, you know, even the Anthony situation at the start of this year. There's so much that's kind of happened off the pitch as well with Erik ten Hag. Crampton says, bottom line is Erik ten Hag needs a couple of seasons once Dan Ashworth is in place. I agree. And at the end of the day, we're all impatient as United fans. We all want to see Man United winning Premier Leagues, winning Champions Leagues. But there is not a chance in hell that you bring in a new manager and that happens straight away anyway. It just doesn't happen. I genuinely think, like, as United fans, we need to come to a realisation that we are years off competing for Premier Leagues or Champions Leagues. Like, we can't even make it into the top 4 consistently, and this has been going on for a decade now. We are not in a place where we can expect to compete for Champions League and Premier Leagues every year. We should be able to because of our name and where we've come from, but we're not. We need to make a decision now. Do you sack Ten Hag and bring in a new manager? And if you do that, that new manager deserves time as well. Or do you stick with a project that's already started, has obviously had some ups and downs because of all the changes that have happened off the pitch within the last 18 months and the new ownership and stuff that Ten Hag has been dealing with? Or but do you stick with a manager and do you allow him to build something properly under Dan Ashworth and Omar Barada and allow Ten Hag to get to the point where there's only one player left that he didn't sign in Manchester United, and you have a team just filled with players that Ten Hag can work with, Ten Hag wants and fit Ten Hag's style of system. And I'm not saying go and give Ten Hag another 400, 500 million, because we know that Ten Hag's talent ID isn't good. I'll admit that. Like, he's managed Anthony previously and he still chose to pull the trigger on 80 million for him. That is concerning. There has been some ones in there that I think are positive. No matter what people say, I still think Onana's going to turn out to be a positive. I think Højlund is obviously an excellent signing. Lisandro Martinez was a great signing. There's ones in there that are a positive. But what Ten Hag needs is he needs a sporting director who's recruiting players specifically tailored to his needs. If I'm Dan Ashworth and I'm Omar Barada, I'll tell you what I'm doing. Because it's clearly not happening right now, is it? And I'm Sir Jim Ratcliffe. I'm having a big meeting, and it should be happening now, by the way. It needs to be happening now. This is why I hope we get Dan Ashworth in as soon as possible. I'm having a big meeting, and I'm saying, look, Eric, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know what was said to you when the Glazers hired you to be the manager of Manchester United, but I'm controlling the football side of things now. I want to be completely honest. I love a lot of things that you've done. I love the way you've handled the youth, as in Kobe Mainoo, Garnacho. I really like, your handling of Rasmus Højlund. And there's some aspects that I really like what you're doing. But I'm going to be honest. When you were managing at Ajax in the Champions League, that's the type of football we would love to see at Manchester United. And that's sort of the basis of what we thought we were going to bring to Manchester United. Why have you not been able to achieve that? Ten Hag then, it's a private meeting, it's not in the press, he's going to be able to say exactly what he thinks. He's going to say, this is just me kind of inferring what I think he'd say. I think he'd say, I'm going to be honest, recruitment hasn't been what I thought it was going to be, and I also do have to hold my hands up a little bit there in terms of I have made some questionable decisions in terms of recruitment, but also I'm going to be honest, this squad just cannot play the way I want them to. I've tried it. I've tried every single way to kind of try and implement it, but these players just don't have the attributes that the players had when I was coaching that Ajax team, and to play the way that I was playing at Ajax here, I would need a lot of money in the summer transfer window. In the transfer windows, it wouldn't happen overnight, and I need a lot of players being sold because they're just not capable. I also think there's a mindset within this squad where we've sacked so many managers under the same pretense that there's just not that mindset that's there that I feel like I can instill into this squad. And I feel like I need investment. I really do, to get the players in that can play my football. And then what happens is Sir Jim, Dan Ashworth, Omar Barada, whoever the team is around Ten Hag, they have a conversation. They say, look, we want you to be able to succeed at Manchester United. We want to be competing in the Champions League, winning Premier Leagues. If you feel like you can do that in Manchester United, we will give you the keys to do that. What we're going to do is going to have multiple transfer windows under Dan Ashworth. We're going to get in the players that you need to play the style of play that you want to play. And we're going to build a Manchester United team that can do this. It's not going to happen in a day. It's not going to happen in a year. But we're going to build it together and we're going to back you. We're going to give you a new contract. That's what could happen. Or it could go the complete other way and Sir Jim says, well, to be honest with you, I just don't think there is a future in it and we want to go our own separate way. We want to kind of handle the recruitment and we want a manager in that's just going to kind of be able to play his style of play and just work with what we've got and we're going to go in a different direction. It could happen two different ways. Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Dave Brailsford and Ineos need to make a decision. But for me, I thought about it long and hard and the decision is you either sack Ten Hag and go with a completely new manager. And if you do that, you have to give him time. You have to. You have to give him multiple transfer windows under the new structure. Or, which would be my preferred target, because it shows the squad now that we're not just going to sack a new manager. It shows the squad that Erik Ten Hag is the boss. We hear about players, potentially falling out with Ten Hag. We don't know how much of it is media, how much of it is true. But we hear about this. Ten Hag is the boss. He's here to stay. You either play the way he wants you to, or you're going to be gone. You either get your head down and work hard or you're going to be gone. And we are going to back this manager. We're going to give him a new contract. And when the going gets tough, we're not going to entertain Ten Hag's under pressure. Ten Hag's going to have to go. What we're going to do is we're going to back him through multiple transfer windows and get in the team that he needs and the players that he needs to be successful. And then, if we've done that, if we build Ten Hag a squad and we don't see progression, then you look to make a change. But people that think you're going to bring in a Nagelsmann or a De Zerbi and things are going to change overnight, I don't understand what your thinking is. I don't understand how you can think that, because the past decade shows us that that doesn't happen at Manchester United. Patrick Lynch says it needs to be acknowledged that no matter who the manager is next season, massive investment and change in the squad is needed regardless. Absolutely, 100%, absolutely. That is massive. That is massive. But I've gone on a little bit of a rant about Erik Ten Hag here, but let me know your thoughts on the manager in the comments. Darren Clark says, United fans are hanging on to what Ten Hag could and should have been and ignoring what's in front of their face. Michael Winther Anderson said the rumour that Ten Hag is not good when it comes to bite a bullet and make up with a player who can be vital for the team. Yeah, this is the thing. A lot of people use the man management side of things, but realistically, do we not just have... Is it that Ten Hag isn't a good man manager, or is it that we just have players that haven't got the right mindset to play for Manchester United and don't appreciate that the boss is the boss? Is that the case? I mean, the only person that I know that Erik Ten Hag has fallen out with is Sancho. Others are just rumours. Others are just complete rumours. I mean, obviously, the Ronaldo situation, to be fair, on the Ronaldo situation, I don't agree with how Ten Hag handled that. Like, Ronaldo is like, just, you do manage Ronaldo differently. But, again, you're not going to agree with everything that a manager does, even if you want him in place. Yeah, exactly. A lot of people say Ronaldo, that's the only one I did really disagree with the way Ten Hag handled it. E.G. Philly says, people want De Zerbi, yet he's been having an arguably worse season than Ten Hag. And one thing I would say, EJ, on that is, I've spoken about it before, because unless... Right, okay, I don't want to belittle anyone because, there will be people here that do watch Brighton every week and do watch football every week. But if you genuinely watch Brighton and keep up with their results every week, you will see it's not all sunshine and rainbows. I think De Zerbi changes the team too much. I think he makes too many risks in his selections. I think sometimes he gets it bang on the money and he can be absolutely brilliant. But there'll be spells where they have heavy defeats. Heavy defeats. It's not like it's not what it gets portrayed to be in the media. And I think, of course, you've got to understand that De Zerbi is managing a squad that has way less investment than what Manchester United does. And, of course, he's getting amazing stuff out of the players he has. And I think De Zerbi's going to go on and be a top manager. I do. Pep always talks about how much he respects him. And I obviously respect Pep's opinion because Pep's probably the best manager in the world right now. So you look at that and you think, De Zerbi is going to be a good manager, but it's not nailed on. It's not nailed on to work out. And people talk as if it is. That's the issue. Sam Bryant says, lol, like United getting drilled by Liverpool and City. Exactly. we can't afford to be doing that season after season. Brighton play better football than United, that's for sure. No, I agree with that. They do. Tiash Vader says, conveniently ignoring that he lost to Spurs after leading 3-0. Talk about all the other seasons when he was in Europe, was more in the Europa League. T-Boss Cello says, if you want to change managers, Sporting and Inter managers are the ones to look at. Yeah, a lot of people talks about Inzaghi and talks about the Sporting manager, and there is managers out there. There's a pool of managers, but I'm not sold on anyone yet, and maybe that's because I'm not doing my research, because I'm firmly sticking behind Erik ten Hag as of now. But everyone, and the one thing I would say as well, obviously it's a big if, but if United beat Liverpool in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup, they would be doing back-to-back Wembley trips in Ten Hag's first 2 seasons at Man United. And bear in mind, thinking, I know the standards are low, but look at what he took over. Look at what he took over. And okay, the style of play isn't there, and that's the most important thing, I get that. But back-to-back Wembley trips in your first 2 seasons isn't too shabby, considering you've taken over the worst point-scoring Man United team in Premier League history. Trey Warren says, everyone says Brighton play good football. It's really shite if you lose 4-0 and 5-0 consistently. Exactly, Trey. And that happens. And imagine doing it on the scale of it, Manchester United. That's why I said, bringing in De Zerbi, I rate him. Do not get me wrong, I rate him. But people would be so like, De Zerbi ball, love it, love it, love it. Proper like on to De Zerbi when he first came in. Like they were with Erik ten Hag. And then, if stuff like that happened, that's why I said it's a big risk. Because you can't afford to continually get battered at a club like Man United. Of course, it's different players, it's a different team, and there is good glimpses there from De Zerbi, but there is risk attached to it. But anyway, I quickly want to just talk about the derby at the end of the show. Everyone smash a like on the video, please. It's a Friday, we're going into the weekend. Get in the comments, what are your plans this Friday night? My plans is to turn off social media, because I'm genuinely so sick of it. Turn off social media, I'm going to go for a nice Italian, and I'm just going to enjoy my night, maybe have a few drinks, look forward to the weekend. Try and look forward to the derby the best I possibly can. Do you know what is really embarrassing as well? The fact, I don't know if any of you guys play FPL, I mean some of you will, Haaland's gone up in price. Haaland's gone up in price before the Manchester derby. That's how much people expect Haaland to score against us. I mean, it is depressing times. Don't know if you watched the Rival show yesterday, but please go and watch it if you haven't already. It was the 8 PM show yesterday. And the odds are like 33-1 for Man United to win 1-0. How ridiculous is that? Like, I hope, is there any way somehow we can pull out some sort of miracle? Is there any way we do it? I think the only way we do it is to park the bus completely and hope we get something on the counter-attack. But he's really going to be tough. When's Fred when you need him? Where is Fred when you need him? To man Matt De Bruyne. He's a player that I generally do miss. And that's how you know you're in trouble, like at United. When you're missing Fred, you know you've not evolved the way you should have evolved. But anyway, I want to ask a couple of questions before the end of the show. First question is, who would you play up front for Manchester United on Sunday? Second question is, should Amrabat play? Because all the City fans that I talk to are like, please play Amrabat. People think Amrabat's crap, like most rival fans do. And my City fan were like, I really hope that you play Amrabat because they don't rate him. Would you guys play Amrabat? Because I thought second half against Forest, I know it's completely different games, I actually thought he did really well. But who does he come in for? Who do you play up front? Where do you play Rashford? It's a whole big dilemma, and Ten Hag's got some questions in questions to answer it with his lineup on Sunday. Should you play Anthony for his work rate against City? Or should you not? Should you play Garnacho right wing, his output your right wing's been excellent? Get in the comments what you would do. Fafi Is Love says, it's tiring to see people saying Erik ten Hag spent 400 million, Murto and his team spent that, not Erik ten Hag's fault. Erik ten Hag has to take some sort of accountability, because obviously he asked for Anthony, he pushed for Anthony, he did push for certain players, but at the same time, if Anthony cost us 40-50 million, which is what he should have cost, still we would have overpaid, but people wouldn't be talking about it nowhere near as much as they do. But yeah, that's the thing, like, you've got to take into accountability that our board and our sporting director has been taken for a ride season after season. McSauce up front, and yes, Amrabat should play. Anthony Jones says he's never wanted to manage in England. He's got no interest in learning the language. Exactly, I said that before. I don't think he'd want to come, Zidane, to Manchester United, but it was in the news, so I did want to talk about it. And Joshua Pino says Mount was the guy to mark Kevin De Bruyne. Honestly, that isn't even a bad shout. Obviously, Mount's not available. I really do think, by the way, for people saying, Mount was a pointless signing, I think over the last few weeks especially, we've really kind of missed having the option of having Mason Mount. We really have. When we've had players underperforming, and Mason Mount is that player that's going to give you everything on the pitch, and he's got the legs, he can keep the ball quite well. I do think we have missed him, and Mount has barely even played, and people try and write him off. I can't wait for him to be back. Do you know what I was saying the other day? I was saying, I actually have a feeling that United are going to get through the quarters against Liverpool in the FA Cup. I don't know why, but I have some sort of feeling. That might change if they have players back and we don't have our players back. But I have a feeling Højlund's going to be back. And at Old Trafford, I just feel like it's a game we have to win. I feel like we might do it. But what I keep saying is, my dream this year, my dream final would be with the teams left in. And the thing is, obviously beating City would be unreal in an FA Cup final, but I just don't see any possibility that we beat City in an FA Cup final. They're the one team I just would go into that game with such a lack of optimism. But I would love a final of Man United-Chelsea in the FA Cup with the teams that are left in. Very unlikely because both teams are quite rubbish, let's be real. But I would love that as a final because, one, I think we'd beat Chelsea. But also, could you imagine Mason Mount, after not even being available all season, scoring the last-minute winner in that game or scoring the winner against Chelsea? Would be absolutely unreal. So if that happens, said it here first. But in terms of the lineup that I would go for, is I'd go for Onana in goal. I'd go for Dalot at right back. I'd go for Varane and Evans as centre backs. I'd go for Lindelof at left back. My midfield three would be Casemiro, Mainu, and even McTominay or Amrabat. Probably, I'd probably go with Casemiro, Amrabat and Mainu, actually. It's my midfield three. And then my front three would be Garnacho off the right, Rashford off the left, and I would actually play Bruno as a false nine. That's how I would go with it, because I think you need to get the best out of the players you've got. I think Garnacho on the right, I actually think his best games for Man United this season have been off the right-hand side. So I would play him there. Especially with City, we're going to need delivery. Whenever we get it, we're going to need delivery. And Garnacho can put in some good deliveries from the right-hand side whenever we do get the opportunity, which will be quite slim. Rashford hasn't been offering anything up front. He's been offering nothing up front, let's be honest. But what he can do is offer you a lot as a left winger. He's just put out that statement and the if you back me, good. If you doubt me, even better. That just screams I'm about to go on a good run of form. I hope he does. I really, for his sake, I hope he does. Play him off his best position, off the left-hand side, and he's so much more likely to do something. And then midfield, I feel like we need to pack it out because City can just control us and dominate us. We have been dominated in the midfield against the likes of Luton, for God's sakes. We need to make sure we have a midfield that's strong in there. Casemiro and Amrabat will do that. Mainu, good on the ball. You're at least trying to battle within City's midfield. I think if you have a midfield of Casemiro, Mainu and Bruno, I just think because Bruno does go out of position quite a lot and pushes quite far forward, unless he coached it differently, I just think there'll be massive gaps in that midfield. But you have to play Bruno as the captain. We've got no options as a striker. Bruno, what he can do is he also is quite good at getting in behind, even though he's not the most pacey player. Then balls in from Onana, that could be an option for us. And what's massive for us is, I said it on a previous show, Rodri is at the heart of everything that Man City does. We need someone to press Rodri out the game. Bruno, if you give him that job, I think he can do it. He's got the work rate. So that's what I would go with. Get in the comments if you would agree with that. Some people might say put McTominay in for Amrabat. You could do, but McTominay I think is a weapon to use off the bench. I really do think he's a weapon to use off the bench. And get in the comments your predictions as well. Sadsak says Amrabat, Cassie, Mainu, Bruno, Anthony play 5 in the midfield. Good midfield 3 with Amrabat, Casemiro and Mainu. Username 1234 says, yeah, well, get in the comments what you think. At Kill Aravin says Bruno can do that. He'll frustrate Rodri but needs discipline. Exactly. Exactly. That's my thinking behind it. Let me know in the comments if you agree. I said it on Twitter the other day, and a lot of people saying, remember the last time Bruno plays false nine versus City? It's a completely different situation. It's a completely different situation. But hit a like on the video, please. Let me know what your thoughts and your predictions are for the derby on Sunday. Thank you everyone for joining us. It's been a hectic week. We've been through the absolute ringer, but we're in this together as a community. And honestly, I would love to say I'm excited for Sunday, but I'm very, very nervous. I genuinely feel like doing a phone in the drawer, lights off, in bed, wake me up after the game and let me know what's happened. That's what I feel like doing, but I'm going to show up for the forum for you guys, and I'm going to be watching the game. So let's fingers crossed and hope that Erik ten Hag can pull something out of the bag. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Have a lovely weekend, and I will see you on the next one.